Hey guys, how are you? I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me. So, can I get a audio check, please? Let me know if you guys can hear me. Thank you, James. All right, awesome. So, I want to get straight into it because for the folks that are going to be listening to the replay, I don't want to be hanging around too long. Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. So just to get a little bit of housekeeping out of the way really quickly. So we are bringing back the Monday critique. And if you guys wanted to submit your images to be critiqued, you could do so in the Fine Art Photography and Modeling Facebook group, which I'll put the link below in the description so you guys can click on it. And if you want to submit your images, you go to the Fine Art Photography and Modeling Facebook group, and in that group you'll find a pinned post at the top of the group where you could put your comments in, put your images into the comments, and that way we would be able to critique your images. Hey, thank you, James, for the $2. Appreciate it. Okay, so feel free to donate just like James did. I appreciate that, James. All right, so I'm gonna jump straight into it here. I pulled some images from previous folks that submitted their images for critique so we could get it started. So let me get my screen up here. This is new, so I'm trying to figure this out. So if I mess it up, just let me know. Get rid of this one. Go away. Okay, so now I should be able to switch this. All right, can you guys hear me still? Because I know sometimes when you switch to a different screen, sometimes folks don't hear you. So just let me know if you could still hear me. I'm not seeing anything, so I'm hoping that you guys could hear me still. Okay, great, awesome. All right, so we have an image here that was submitted by Carlos. I'm gonna start off with this image. This image was submitted by Carlos. He pretty much indicated when he submitted this image that as far as the settings are concerned, he shot it at 1/60th of a second at f1.8. Pretty shallow depth of field he shot it at. And the ISO was 100, was a 50 millimeter lens that he used, and it was all sunset, all natural light that he utilized, and he utilized a pretty old camera here, Canon T2i. Okay, so that's what he pretty much used here. So I like to start off with light primarily when I'm critiquing images. So that's what we're going to focus on initially here, is the light. So, and before we get into this here, I'm going to be talking, and guys, please feel free to put comments and stuff in here. I'll definitely go back and I'll read the comments, and we'll have a conversation about these images after. Obviously, you guys could agree or disagree with whatever I have to say. That's all part of the whole process of learning here. Not everything that I say is right or wrong. It's just my personal opinion. So let's jump into it here. So the very first thing that I like to look at, like I said before, is the light. So in this particular image, like he said in his description, he utilized natural light. Now the light that's coming off of the water here is really, really nice. It has that nice little yellow highlight to the image, which just helps frame up the subject really nicely. So I kind of like that. The only thing that I don't like with respect to the light is how flat the light is on the subject, which basically is the primary person in this image, which is the young lady here. So you would want the light on your subject to hit her more, to give her a little bit more depth. I like to add depth and dimension into my images, and when I look at the subject, I'm not seeing much depth, so that's really important for me. So if I had to change this image up just a little bit with respect to the light. I would try to position the subject so that that light that's hitting the water is just kissing her face a little bit more. That will add a little bit more depth and dimension into this image. But overall, I like the softness of the light that's on the subject. I think that's really, really good. And I like how you isolated the subject in the middle of the image, you know, that allows that light, that yellow light, to frame her up really nicely. So overall, I really like that, but those are the only things I would change with respect to the light. So now let's move on to posing. So from a posing perspective, I really love the playfulness of this pose. I really like the way that she's looking down. It's like she's, you know, really thinking about something, which is, you know, kind of cool. The one thing I would change with respect to this pose is if you look at her neck here, you're not really seeing much of it. And a rule of thumb is when you're working with models, you want to make sure that you show their neck. So the one thing I would change with respect to this pose is I would simply just ask her to move her here from here to the other side, which is her right side. And that way you would get to see a little bit more of her neck. And if she would just elevate her chin just a little bit, not that much, but just a little bit, and that would offer a little bit more gap between her left shoulder and her chin, and that would offer to give you a little bit more insight into seeing, defining more of her jawbone and giving her more neck, which is missing in this particular shot. Another thing that I really like with your pose that you got going on here is the fact that you add in shape to the subject. So these gaps that we have here on the subject is really, really nice. So, you know, anytime you have an opportunity to pose a female subject and you could offer shape to that subject, they will love you. So always continue to do that. So I really, really like the fact that you're basically giving your subject shape here. That's awesome. So besides that, the only other thing I would change with your pose here is that with her left hand, I would try to bring it out a little bit more this way. So I would ask her to bend her left elbow just a little bit more. And that would offer just a little bit more elegance to this image with respect to the pose. But that's it. All of that, without those little minor tweaks, I think this pose is spot on. Now, the last thing I would like to cover, which is the composition. From a compositional perspective, I really love the composition. Sometimes folks say, hey, don't put your subject in the dead center of an image. I really don't mind. This image really, for the fact that the light, how the light is framing her, I really like the fact that how you just chose to put her, not dead center, it's not completely dead center in the image, but I really, really love how you put this composition together. And it looks like you eliminated just the landmark. You just isolated her in the water, which is perfect. Because she could be in the middle of the ocean, walking on water, I don't know. But it's awesome. I like the composition. So other than that, I wouldn't change a thing. So with that said, since we're doing this live, before I jump on to the next image, I'm just going to go to the chat here and see if anyone has any other different thoughts on what I had to say with respect to the light, pose, and composition on this particular image. So I guess everyone either agree with what I'm saying or they I don't have any thoughts on it. All right, well, I'll let you guys think about what you want to say. So James wrote here, James wrote, I agree with adding a little light to the subject. Yeah, just a little bit of light would offer just a little bit more definition on the subject. And Carl also wrote here, so you would add light left or right. So I would, given that the subject is looking camera left, the I would add the light to camera left. Now, also just bear in mind the fact that Carlos is using natural light. He is at the mercy of wherever that light is. So I would imagine that she would have, well, not only she, but also Carlos would have to change his camera position as well to be a little bit more to the left of the subject, to basically make sure that that light is hitting our face a little bit more. If he was utilizing like artificial light, obviously putting that light camera left will definitely give that a little bit more definition to the subject. But yeah, that's it. Any other thoughts before I move on to the next image? With a, are you saying snoot or snot? Carl. I think you're trying to say snoot. No, you don't have to use a snoot with this. You could use a soft box, it's fine. Or you could actually use a reflector to help bounce some light back onto the subject. And yep, that's right. I thought that's what you meant, Carl. Yeah, you could basically use a reflector, or you could use a soft box. You don't have to be that large of a soft box. Something that's just larger than her face is good enough. And that would have been all that you need here to help her, bring her out a little bit more. And that's it for the light on this particular subject. So now let's move on to the next image here, which is another image that was submitted by Carlos. So let's dive into this particular image. Now, off the bat, I am in love with this image. It's very elegant. It's very seductive. I really like it. It's very playful. Which is what you would try to get on a wedding day. I don't know if this is a wedding image per se, but obviously she's wearing a wedding gown and she has on the veil and all that good stuff. But I don't know if she's a model or if she was actually a bride or something like that. But I really love it. It gives you a lot of ideas on how you could approach this particular scene when you're working with a mirror, because that's what it is. You're working with a mirror. And you walk into, like, let's say a hotel room, and you have to come up with creative poses or creative compositions to, make sure that you sell that image. So overall, like I said, I really love this image. So let's start out with the very first thing I like to do here, which is light. Now, the light on camera left here, for me, is a little bit distracting, is a little bit too bright. And for me, I would want to hide that light just a little bit more, because when I'm looking at this image, the first thing that my eye goes to is the light on camera left, because that light on camera left is a lot brighter than the light that's hitting our subject's face. Now, obviously, the light on camera left is also lighting up the subject's face, which is fine. You could do that. I do that a lot when I'm utilizing any type of light source that's just hanging off of a wall or something like that. It's perfect, but you want to hide the main light source, because that main light source is going to be extremely bright. So you want to hide it. So I would utilize the subject's head to help hide that light a little bit more, or change my composition just a little bit, maybe going a little bit more to camera right to hide that subject's, to hide that light just a little bit more. I really think that would have helped decrease the distraction in this particular image. Now, with respect to the light on the subject's face, if you look at the light on the subject's face, there's different type of lighting setups that you can have. And this particular lighting setup that's on the subject's face is what they call broad lighting. Generally, you don't want to broad light a subject. And broad lighting, for the folks that don't know what it is basically like if you're lighting this part of the subject's face, and this part of the subject's face is not in shadow, and you are shooting on this side of the subject's face, that is broad lighting. So you're shooting on the broadest side of the subject's face. And if you have a person that's a little bit fuller or a little bit bigger, this will just make their face, a lot larger than it needs to be. So generally, you try to avoid shooting someone on the broad side of the face. Some people like that. Some photographers like that approach of shooting people on the broader side of the face because maybe that's their style or whatever. But I personally try to avoid that because what I try to do is, like I said, I always try to add depth and dimension because you got to remember we are working on a two-dimensional image here, and what we are trying to sell is an illusion of the fact that you have some type of a 3D image. So the way to do that is with light and shadow, and by shooting her on the broad side of the face, you're basically making the image extremely flat. So if you shoot the image on the shadow side of the face, you would get more depth and dimension. So I would have asked her to fix that. I would just simply would ask her to turn her face a little bit to camera left, and then shoot her on this side of the face, and then you would get more depth and dimension in the image. So from a lighting perspective, those are the only two things I would have changed. Just change her face so that you could shoot more on the shadow side of the face and then hide this light here on camera, right? But other than that, I really love the mood that's going on here. Oh, there's one more thing that I would have changed in this image as well. And that other thing that I would have changed is if you look at her here, it's kind of getting lost in the background. So if possible, I would have tried to get some kind of a hair light for her hair so it doesn't get lost in the background. But that's just a little bit of finesse there would have increased the how this image would have been finally produced. So just a little bit more finesse there, and that's it as far as the lighting is concerned. So now let's move on to the pose. So the pose for me is really what's selling this image for me, and is drawing me in. I really, really love the fact that she's bringing her shoulder. Why can't I try to think of the word? It's shoulder. I really love how she's bringing her shoulder to her chin. That's really playful. I really love the fact that she's connecting to the camera. Her eyes is how the way she's connecting to the camera. I really, really love that. Now, I don't know, what is that, her right arm. I don't know if her right arm is connecting, if she's embracing herself or if it's just hanging out there. But it gives the appearance that it's just hanging, it's not, she's not holding on to her other arm. And for me, that's just a little bit distracting. But other than that, that's a minor thing. But other than that, I really just love the fact that it just makes the image feels a lot elegant the way she is positioned as far as her eyes, how she's connected to the camera, and the fact that she just brings up her shoulder just a little bit there. So I wouldn't change anything with respect to her pose. I think it's really nice. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else I would change, and I can't think of anything else that I would change here. So let's move on to the composition. So from a compositional perspective, the composition is fine, but because of that light that's on camera left, that's the only thing that's forcing me to say we should have changed the composition here. And also, if you look here, where her head actually ends and her reflection begins, what I would have loved to see is just a little bit of a gap between where her head ends and where her reflection begins, because that would have just give this image a little bit more definition. So by Carlos changing his camera position to go a little bit more camera right, he would have easily getting that gap between her head and her reflection there. And that would have really, sorry guys, just got a text message. And that would have really, really offered some separation there between her reflection and her actual, the actual person. So that's all I had to say with respect to this particular image, with respect to light, the pose and the composition. I don't have anything to offer with respect to the post-production. I think the post-production is fine for this image. I didn't really mention anything about a post-production on the previous image. The post-production on this image, it also is a little bit flat. Like he basically like took most of the shadows out, so it kind of makes the image feels a little bit flat. But you know, if you just add a little bit more contrast in the post-production, it would have made this image popped a little bit more. But as going back to this image a little bit, I don't have anything to offer with respect to the post-production. I think it's pretty well done. All right, so let me go into the comments here and see what you guys have to say. If you have any questions or if you have a different thought on these two particular images, because these are the two particular images that we are reviewing tonight. And then next Monday, we were going to review additional images. Again, if you guys want to submit your images to be critiqued, please go to our Facebook group, which the link would be in the description below. And you could just simply click on that link and make sure you go to the pinned post in that group to basically submit your image to be critiqued. All right, so now let's move on to the comments in here. Let me just switch out this really quick, guys. Hang on. Okay. So let me see what you guys have to say. Okay, so James Paris was saying, I like the image, but would like to see the red and highlights cut on image left, like half of her head. Yes, I agree. That lighting is just a little bit distracting. So yeah, I just think if he would close in his composition a little bit more, I think it wouldn't have been as distracting. Nice image, has a lot of drama. Yeah, it does. It does have a lot of drama to it. Ernesto, what about if she brought her right shoulder down a little? Thoughts? Let's take a look at that. Let's see. Let me switch it back. You know what? It doesn't hurt to try. I don't see why not. Why do you say that, James? Do you think it's a little bit? It feels a little bit forced or awkward because the way it's positioned? Foreground is a little tight. Well, you know what? One of the things that is helpful when you're doing or you're unsure about some kind of pose is always to get a variety of the pose. So if you think that shoulder being up is a little bit too forced or it looks a little bit too awkward or something like that, from your personal perspective, then get it like that, and then just get another shot with her shoulder slightly down, and see if that makes a difference for you personally. Like I recently, let me switch this thing back here. I recently submitted my images to be judged when I went to Shutterfest. And at Shutterfest, they basically judged my image, and it was so, I said I would never do something like that, and I did it, meaning submitting my images to be judged. But when I did it, it was so peaky. The way they judge these images, every little thing they nitpick. The things that they said about my image was that I wish I had a little bit more details in the shadows. What is that? It's not like the image was terrible or anything, but it was very nitpicky. and then other images that had like the same type of lighting situation and the same type of shadow ratios, they didn't say much about it. So everything is subjective to the person that's viewing it and looking at it. So one person may like it, the other person may hate it. So give it a shot, you know, try it differently, and maybe the way that you position it, other people may like it, I may like it, who knows. All right, so let's see what else you have. What are the comments you have here? Are there two lights in our eyes? Did he use two lights? Well, let's look at his comments at what he stated when he submitted this image. So he shot this at 1/100 of a second, so his shutter speed was at 100, and the f-stop was at 4, and his ISO was at 200. He shot this with a 70-200 lens at 70. He used ambient light plus mirror light, so he says see catch lights, 13 bulbs. So the answer is yes, he did use the mirror light and the ambient light. All right, so here as well, we'll open it up for discussions, conversations, questions, whether it be about the images or lighting, posing, composition, any questions that you guys may have. Let's open it up for about 10 minutes, and then after that, we call it a wrap. Well, if you guys don't have any questions, at this point I will try to wrap up this video so it's not too long. So if you guys like this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Put some comments down below. Let me know what you think about this new format. It's definitely a new format. I'm just trying it out. Obviously, we're going to work out the kinks as we keep going, and we're going to make it a little bit more tighter, and you know, hopefully it will be something really great. Please share this video with your friends or family if you think it's helpful. And guys, if you got this far in this video and you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you guys for who James, and I forget who else submitted super chats, donating. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate you guys supporting the channel. So thank you very much. So until the next time, I will see you guys on the next Monday Critique. Just remember, we put out videos every Sunday. So look out for that. Next Sunday would be the photo shoot of the 4-part series that I've been putting together. So look out for that. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a nice evening.